And that was the year two in a scramble because it was the beginning of 2020. So everyone was getting hogs, and it was like, if you found something, you had to get it. It was horrible. The pig ended up dying because my other ones were sick and everything. We lost a lot in vet bills that year. It was a lot of heartache. And who wants to see their animals suffering and die? It was an awful experience.
Melina, thank you for picking me and trusting me with your time and your energy and the questions that you have. Normally, I just ask people to introduce themselves because I know a little bit about you and I met you at Homesteaders, but I didn't really get to hear a whole lot about you. So I was hoping I can get some of that. And then why are you picking pork rind out of all people in the world? Why are you picking me?
All right, I am Melina Anderson. We have a small farm in Southeast Michigan. I met you at the Homesteaders of America conference, and we were there because that is what we are trying to do. For the past 3 years, this will be our 4th year, we've gotten, more every year. So first year we had 6, second year, I think we had 10 or 12. Last year we had 13. So this year we'll have, I think, 14, hopefully, if we can find them. But I really enjoyed your talk at the Homesteaders of America conference. I can't remember if it was Polyface Farm or somebody had tagged you on Instagram. And I thought, hey, I want to check this out because he's all into pigs and I am learning. I'm just starting out. I'm like, well, let's hear what he has to say. And I learned a lot, especially at the conference. And not only do you have a wealth of information, but you make it fun and easy to learn, and it's not confusing. And I've had a hard time. Like, sometimes you just meet people that are so technical and I have no idea what you are saying, but you make the information accessible and easy to understand, especially for someone just starting out. So that's why when through my research and stuff for this year, the first person that popped in my head, I'm going to ask Pork Rind what he thinks, because I know he probably knows.
Yeah, I didn't pay her to say that. Well, I've gone to so many conferences where you get an extension agent or someone that works at a nonprofit. Most of them never have farming experience. And the information that they would give would either be research, meaning something that was government funded through grants, but not necessarily the most practical thing for a homesteader or even someone who's just getting out on the farm. I want to make sure that it was not just simply fun, but that it's also educational, because we got a lot of people out there who call themselves educators, especially on YouTube, and really they're just entertainers who think they're doing education. And that's led to a lot of misinformation. Pigs have died. Pigs have been mistreated over information that people are like, oh, this is the right way to raise pigs. I'm glad first of all, just thank you for showing up. You got so many people out there that wouldn't even put in the time and energy to ask intelligent questions about how they can properly raise pigs. So I just appreciate you even taking the time out to seek wisdom without the hogwash.
And I have found that there's been one farmer that we've gotten our pigs from, and he's raised pigs for many years. Sometimes farmers are stuck in only like one way of doing things. And I'm trying to figure out not only the best way to raise a hog, but to also use the animal to help improve our property, our pastures, trying to incorporate the animals to work for us in the direction that we're going. Farmers can be stuck in their ways, and if they have only done it one way their entire life, they don't know anything different. So some of my questions, they just don't know, and that's not their fault. That's the way they do pigs. With the experience that you've had going to so many different farms, I feel like asking you have a wide range of knowledge. So it's not just going to be one thing and this is the only way. So I feel like I'll be able to get a good opinion based on experience.
Yes. Man, you're oh, wow. Okay, I think I'm a fan of you now, Melina. You're doing your homework. I like that. Yeah, I believe in context-based education, and I'm grateful to God that I have my own farming experiences, which was rotational grazing of all multitude of livestock. But I've learned through my travels, teaching people in East Africa, and just going across the country and doing consulting that a lot of people have different contexts, whether it's we have X amount of funds for a pig operation or a project, or we have this type of soil or land. Some people got a lot of trees. Some people, it's just pure pasture. Figuring out what's the best way to manage my pigs, but also the best way to manage my time and my energy. Because I got some people, it's just them and a spouse. I got some people, it's just them. I got some people that it's them and 10 kids. So even figuring out how do you manage a pig enterprise or just raising pigs for the homestead in a way that fits your family dynamic and your lifestyle is really important. So I won't take up too much time. I know you had some particular questions. I'd love to be able to see how I can be of service to you. So ask your questions and I'll see what I can do to answer them.
All right, I did write some down so I can stay on track. So I'll tell you this year where we're at. I don't know about in every area, but I had to book my hog butcher appointments last fall. So I had to book my appointments are in October this year. I had to book them like a year in advance. So now I am limited to that number of hogs. We did a little bit more just in case. I feel like I can always cancel months in advance, and that's better than not having enough spots. So this year we have 14 spots, and we found a farmer that we really like his hogs, and he was the first person we ever bought hogs from. So last year, though, our second year raising hogs, his sows did not get pregnant. And then we are scrambling for finding somebody else that has hogs. So we only found half the number we wanted, ended up getting hogs from 3 different places. And the last place we got from had, what is it, PV? I forgot that the pig, it's a pig respiratory disease. Did not know it. It was horrible. The pig ended up dying. I had to take it to the state lab to get a necropsy on it because my other ones were sick. Thankfully, that was the only one that passed. So lessons learned with biosecurity and everything like that. Last year was fine, but now this year again, the farmer said he had 2 sows gave birth, and it just so happened that one sow lost all her piglets, so he only has 7. Last year he had 40 piglets. This year it's 7. I contacted other people and they're like, don't know if they're pregnant yet. Could be not. I could have pigs for you in March. I could have pigs for you in June. Like, that doesn't help me. So the struggle to find pigs right now is real. So we're going through it right now, trying to find the rest of I think I have the 7 secured. I need 7 more. So finding the piglets is hard. The price of piglets has gone up insane. When we first bought them, I think they were like $60 for a feeder, $60, $70, $150. That's a massive leap. And we're finding them in all different price range. That's the high end. So that has led us to really think and consider about having our own sows and raising them ourselves. I guess that's a big step for us because that's another large animal that we're going to have to house all year long. And we have never done pigs in the winter. We've always got them in the spring, butchered them in the fall. So that's been our experience with hogs during the year. Some of my questions would be in finding, if we were to get our own sows, I would prefer a breed that would be good to live outside. Like, I don't have to house it in a barn. And every pig farm that I've ever gone to, they keep their sows and boars in one location, and the mud is 3 feet deep, and it just stinks. It freaks me out. That's what's going to happen. I guess My big question is housing outdoors. We have open pasture and woods. Are there breeds that are like more easy? They'd follow you. Hey, we can move you here now in the summertime. We can move you here in the winter. That's where we're trying to figure out, is there a certain breed that will fit best with a Michigan winter? Is there a breed that actually can be raised pretty quickly on pasture along with supplemental feed? But that's what we're trying to figure out. Housing, what's required for them? Are there social animals? So do I have to have two sows together? Then obviously I did watch another speech at HOA about AI with pigs. She made it sound easy. I'm like, that sounds like doable instead of having to keep a boar. We have young kids, 6 and 8. So I would try to find a breed that's not, I'm not going to be afraid that it's going to get my kids if they come in the pasture to help or something like that. That's just what's running through our mind right now, because we've never had a pig into adulthood. But what I'm really trying to find out is, can we do this? Is there a good breed for kind of what we're looking for that you would maybe recommend? This was the first year, I think I sent you in the email, that I heard someone talk about the GOS. That was the first year I've actually heard of that breed, because somebody had a cross that they had piglets for. And I'm like, I know nothing about this breed, but what I was reading, they said they're better on pasture. They're a heritage breed that was bred for giving birth outside and being, so I guess your thoughts on that. If for this year, if I were to get crossbreed of those two, is that something, do they grow well? I guess more, you want to say commercially, but within 5 to 6 months, would they be ready for butcher? So lots of thoughts.
I'm gonna pause you there because
I could keep going. That didn't even touch all my questions.
I've just been writing down stuff, and we already got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 questions, basically 13 questions so far. Okay. So I don't want you to get too far and not be able to answer your question. So first of all, I just want to tell you that you're not alone. So if you're thinking like, oh my God, I'm the only one experiencing this, you're not alone. You're not alone. Everything that you have listed out so far, you are not alone in. I've not heard anything that is unique only to your experience. So have hope. There is hope for you, I do believe. But let's tackle a couple of things. So you did acknowledge that processing has been an issue. And because the dates are so far in advance, it's causing you to think ahead. Now, you've been doing this for 4 years, correct?
This will be our 4th.
This will be your 4th? Yeah. So it's that time to either go big or go home. I'm just going to be honest with you. And I feel like you guys are committed. So I don't think me saying that should scare you by any means. But you're getting to a point where you have the general experience of raising pigs. And you're realizing that you're scaling up so much, because a lot of people who are starting out homesteading, they want just two pigs. And I never tell anyone just get one pig unless that's going to be your pet pig. And then that causes problems if you won't eat your pet pig. Anyways, but if you were at 14 pigs, you need 14 pigs a year. I'm pretty sure your whole family's not eating all those pigs. You're selling them to a market, right? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I dare say you're not really, you can call yourself homesteaders, but y'all are basically like legit farmers now. So now you're having to look at stuff.
Yeah, I feel like we've crossed that bridge now, and yeah. So I think we consider ourselves a little more on the farmer side than like homesteading.
Right. So you graduated. Good job. Good job. Good job. Way to go. Way to go. So you've graduated. And with graduation comes a lot more responsibilities now. You have to very seriously look at this as a business. And clearly you're thinking in terms of, I don't know about the money part, but you're at least thinking about logistically, systematically, how do I create a system that works well for my conditions, my environment, my land, my peace of mind. One issue that you had that was a commonality is all these factors are stressing you out. You had that biosecurity breach, which a lot of people who are getting into pigs, they don't even appreciate biosecurity, right? You went to 3 different breeders and that one time, and one of them had a sick pig, whatever the disease was. Imagine that disease passing on to those other pigs. You just lost your entire investment.
Yep.
Whole investment. When I go to East Africa, I tell people farming is business, and that one pig literally will equate to a child's education for that year. So if that pig dies, that child's not going to school that year. Or that family's going to have to really cough up a lot of money up front unexpectedly to be able to provide that education for that child. Yeah, you're in the big leagues. You might seem small, but you're really in the big leagues right now with 14 pigs.
We lost a lot in vet bills that year. It was a lot of heartache. And who wants to see their animals suffering and die? It was an awful experience. And they didn't even look sick when we got there. And the guy was like, oh yeah, like I raised thousands for 4-H all over like a bunch of states. And he sounded really good and the pigs looked good. And I thought, I don't have right now a separate spot for them. Just throw them in there, and regret it to this day. So lesson learned.
Yeah, always have a biosecurity section or pin, and definitely keep each individual group, wherever you got them from, separate. But you're not even thinking about that anymore. You're thinking about having your own stuff. But you talked about vet bills. If you don't mind me asking you, what was your estimate for that one mistake? What was your economic cost?
Let's just say this is going to be very low because the mobile vet, thankfully, lives right around the corner from my house. So he does not charge me a full cost to come out there. The next mobile vet, the closest one, will charge me just $100 to drive into my driveway. So he's on the low end. So this is a low estimate, but because we had to treat that pig multiple times and then all of the other ones, and had to do like lab work testing, and then end up having to take it and pay for the necropsy, I want to say it probably cost in the maybe $300 to $500 range. So I mean, I have all the receipts for it and everything, but yeah, it wasn't, the necropsy itself was over $100. So that's extremely low. If I had to have that other vet, it would probably be between $500 and $1,000.
I'm going to ask you one more question, because again, you're no longer homesteader level now. You are arriving, and again, this is important. You can't stay in the middle scale for long. You might have a year or two before your scale inefficiency will start to burn out your farm and your farm resources. With that being said, with you having that vet bill, did you have a budget when you budget out raising pigs? Did you even have a budget for vet bills?
No, because our first year went so well. I didn't ever expect to have such a huge disease issue. So it was vet bill, and something can happen always. That's in the back of my mind, but definitely nothing like that.
And that's one thing that a lot of farmers make a mistake in, is they're like, oh, it went so well these last couple of times, it's going to continue to go well. And as we know in life, that never happens. Or if it happens, not for long. So you basically lost enough money to have bought 2, 3, and if it was going up into the thousands, almost 6 more pigs.
Probably.
You lost one, but you also lost the money or capital to have also bought even more pigs.
Yeah, and that was the year too, in a scramble, because it was the beginning of 2020. So everyone was getting hogs, and it was like, if you found something, you had to get it. There wasn't multiple options there were the year before, our first year. We had a ton of options. We also made the mistake of getting one that I'm assuming now they got it from some kind of a commercial farm, and they took the piglets when they were really little. They were just too small and had no idea. And one died out of that group too. It just from being so tiny that it couldn't live outside. We had to take those, I think it was 6, we had to take those into the barn and stuff them with straw because they were just too small to be outside. So that was another mistake, and it was like all in the same year. So it was a bit devastating. It makes you like, am I cut out to do this or not?
this is just a part of farming. So again,
Mm-hmm.
you're not alone in this. I've heard worse horror stories. I've heard people losing their whole herds because they let one pig in.
Yep.
50 pigs, 100 pigs lost because they let one pig in. So, A, you learned a lesson from that. Bravo, good job. I think that forced you to really see how do we have security, not for the homestead anymore, but for your farm business. So again, looking at this as a business is really important because it will change the decisions that you make. It's not, oh, this will, we can shortchange this area here or there. At the homestead level, you can because the impact is less. Going into big leagues, can't do that anymore. But I'm glad that you're learning that. And I want to kind of answer some of the other questions that you had. So let's go into sows for security for your farm business. I think that's really important. Are you located in that like mythical northern wonderland in that northern Michigan part?
We are southeast. So we are about 20 to 30 minutes if I'm driving from Detroit.
Gotcha. Good. So very cold weather. I was in Wisconsin earlier this year to speak at a conference there, and it was like -12 one day. So that I think y'all are further north than that. So yeah, it's gonna be cold up there. So you need a pig that's going to not die essentially, but also more importantly thrive or at least maintain itself during that winter period.
We're right probably 45 minutes from the Ohio border. So we do get cold days. Like it has gone below 0 this year, but that's not typical. Probably, I'd say in the 0 to 10 is probably like a normal harsh winter for probably the month of January.
Oh, okay. That's good.
So it's not too bad.
So what I experienced in Wisconsin was just a fluke. That's what happened. Okay, so there are a lot of different breeds. I think the most important thing is not to pick necessarily the breed itself, but to pick stock that is in a similar environment. So even though like GOS, which are a very good breed, hardy breed, I've seen GOS being raised in negative below 0 temperatures and still look like they were fine. The biggest thing is finding pigs that are in your local area or pigs that are within that kind of same climate zone that you have going on. Sometimes when you get pigs from south, they will need a adjustment period just to acclimate. But if you can find pigs that are local-ish and that are good stock, that's going to be important. The other thing to really keep in mind is not just the breed itself, but also does it have good breeding traits? A lot of people get so sold and caught up on the breed, the stardom of the breed. Oh, people talk about this breed all the time. Everyone's talking about GOS because one YouTube celebrity farmer has GOS pigs. Really, it's just really how, let's be honest, it's just really how it is right now. So that's fine, but it's also about if I'm going to buy breeding stock, the pig needs to have the confirmation of a breedable pig. So you have to, as a buyer, look into what does the confirmation or good confirmation of breeding stock, both for a couple sows and a boar, look like for that particular breed. Every breed is going to have a different form of confirmation. A Kune Kune is going to have a very different breeding standard confirmation than a GOS, than a English Large Black, than a Duroc. It will be your responsibility to, not only find a breeder, but find a very good reputable breeder, someone don't go on Craigslist. Do not go on Craigslist. Go to some of the breed association pages, and most of them should have a website as well. So the GASA organization, which is Gloucestershire Old Spot Association, I'm really good friends with a lot of the breeders in their program. I could recommend some breeders for you or figure it out or find out. But you can also go to their website, and they should have a breeders directory where you can find those particular breeders that are near your area. So that way, if you did have to buy pigs maybe a state away, they're still more acclimated to that environment, to that system, than a pig that's further down south. The other thing with this is making sure you pick breeding stock that comes from farms similar to what you are currently doing, production-wise, and wanting to do. A good example of that is with commercial pigs, or even like heritage pigs. You got some farmers who they don't have their pigs out. They have their pigs either in some kind of barn system and they feed them corn soy. Okay, if you put those pigs out that came from that farm onto a more rougher environment, they're not usually going to do as well. Or again, they'll have to acclimate to do as well later on. So that's another thing that you want to keep in mind is what would that look like, not just for that breed, but for the individual pigs that you're going to get. So things I want you to take away from this particular part of our conversation is find the right breed that's going to work for you. GOS is a great breed. If it can work in Wisconsin, it can definitely work where you're at. The other thing is finding breeding stock that has good conformation, body conformation. So the sows need to look a certain way, the boars need to look a certain way, and educate yourself on that with the network of breeders with the breed that you want to go into before even picking out a breed. So if you're like, you know what, I don't want to be swindled. So if you don't want to be swindled, there are gossip farmers all the way in California. You can go ask them, hey, what does a good conformation for a sow and a boar look like? Do you have any photos? I'm thinking about buying pigs. You're too far away, so I'm not going to be buying pigs from you, but I would love to just learn. I'm interested in the breed. And I'm pretty sure people like Loretta would love to talk about breeding standards and what to look for. So that way, when you're looking within your local area, you have more confidence on what to look for without being swindled by people who raise purebred stock, but don't necessarily give you good confirmation.
On the breed thing, for sows that I will be like keeping, do you recommend a single breed? Or is there a problem with having a crossbreed as your breeding sow?
So you can do either or. When you go into crossbreeding, you typically experience more hybrid vigor. Some people want to stay purebred because they want a specific knowable carcass quality. When you start going crossbreeding, you won't always know how that carcass is going to turn out, what genetics are going to have the stronger influence, and what your grow out's going to be like. That also depends on what you're feeding them, though, right? When you're growing them out, because they might be eating a lot of feed, but if it's wintertime, they're eating a lot of feed to conserve on being able to generate energy for themselves. Right. Warm. When it's super hot outside, they're not going to eat a lot of feed because as they eat feed, it's converting into heat energy. Well, pigs don't like being hot. They're going to eat less feed, meaning they're also not going to grow as well. So their gains are going to be lower than a typical temperate environment. So that's something to consider. If you do crossbreeding, usually your litter numbers are higher than if you were to do pure breeding. So that is something, if you're like, man, I want to make sure I get the most pigs I possibly can, then definitely consider that. Also, what your end result is going to be. Do you want pigs that give you a lot of carcass meat? Or do you want pigs that are going to provide you a nice fat cap, right? Getting Durocs, that ain't going to cut it. You're going to have to grow them out for at least another 2 months for them to have a nice fat cap on them, plus marbling. Versus your Gloucester Old Spots, within by 8 months, they should have fairly good marbling, good intra and intermuscular fat. So it's a give and take. Some people like getting the breed and sticking with the breed just because they have that predictable consistency, while others want to play around and find the best pork ever. So we're going to breed all these different breeds. I think both are fine. It just depends on how much risk you want to take. So what's your end goal? What are your top products that you're trying to sell right now?
Right now, right now in Michigan, we can only legally share or sell by the share. So it's got to be like a whole hog, half hog. This year, though, we plan on you have to get licensed to be able to sell by the cut. Yeah, and it has to be, processed at a USDA processor, all these rules. And so we're going to try 2 pigs that way to where we could maybe see what people are looking for. Because I think a lot of people are intimidated to put in the money up front for a share because it's a big lump expense. So that's basically right now is we just do the shares and then we'll have 2 that we'll do by the cut this year to see. So I guess pigs that grow well in a certain amount of time frame. But obviously, if we have our own sows and we're breeding them ourselves, we can adjust that timeline to hopefully when they're born, how long they'll have to raise out and stuff like that.
So if you're doing shares from a business standpoint, you typically don't get as much money compared to retail, which you know that, which is why people who thrive in doing whole hogs, half hogs, they try to be as scale efficient as possible. So they don't have 14 pigs, they got 70 pigs, 100 pigs. So it'd be interesting how you will fare in the retail space if you have good marketing and stuff like that. In terms of like your finishing time, the breed can depict that for the most part. But the biggest thing to focus on is not just when you want to finish, but when do you want your cash flow? So if you're using English large blacks, by a year's time, they're going to be ready. So between 10 months to a year, they're going to be at 250, maybe 275 pounds. But that's a year time frame. If you're raising a Yorkshire Duroc cross or a Duroc Hamp cross or something like that, 6 months, maybe 7 months, and I would probably push it out to 7 to 8 months just to get more back fat. Those pigs are going to give you a quicker cash flow. So think about, do I want to sit around and wait on my money, or do I want quicker money? What that can mean, and this is a system I love to recommend, is go ahead, you can get a breeding trio, but not a breeding trio. Because if you buy a breeding trio, which typically is 2 sows and a boar, if it's a reputable breeder, they will give you 2 sows and a boar, but the boar should not be related in any way to those sows or gilts. That's one way of doing it. I like the heritage conventional system where you have a sow that is a commercial sow, or maybe the sow is like a Yorkshire. You can get about 15 piglets a pop on a Yorkshire, good quality Yorkshire. And let's say you have a Gloucester Old Spot sow, but you have a GOS 4. So that cross, the ones that are going to be crossed with the Yorkshire and the Gloucester Old Spot, not that I recommend this cross, I'm just giving you an example, that will allow for you to have quicker growing pigs. So then you have both a quicker cash flow that works good for your meaty retail cuts like your chops, your bacon, your shoulder roast, your hams. And then for maybe your more savory sausages, charcuterie even, if you want to get into that, have that purebred Gloucester Old Spot line with those piglets. So that's one way you can do it, where I got quicker cash flow and slow cash flow, but I'm also differentiating the uses of the crossbred piglets versus the purebred piglets. Some people, they don't want to do a whole lot of meat. They want to just sell off pigs. You can sell purebreds for $300. Heck, you want to sell for $500? Go ahead and do it. Like you said, it went up from $60 to $150. Can you imagine raising a sow for 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days, and then getting piglets, raising those piglets to month and a half to 2 months, and then selling each piglet for $200 a pop? That's quick cash flow that feeds your sows for the next year, upcoming year, or it buys feed for the piglets that you're going to keep on your farm. So I want you to start thinking about how you maneuver with different breeds and different systems, because that will help you become flexible when things change. So when you don't have a lot of people buying retail or even buying shares, that's okay, because you still have piglets that you can sell. So I want you to think like outside the box, flexible everywhere. How does that sound, Melinda? How does that sound, Melinda?
Yeah, that's what we were thinking too. And the one thing I don't know, if can pigs breed year round, because one of the things I found too was it's a lot easier to get appointments in the beginning of spring or the end of winter than it is in the fall. So if I had the option of having piglets and raising them over the winter, but like you said, obviously it would take a little more food since they're eating to stay warm, but it also gives me cash flow at 2 different times of the year, and then I don't have to do everything at once. And then sometimes it's hard because when people ask if I have pork available, I'm like, sorry, no, it's only in the fall. Instead of being able to say, yeah, I'll have some in a couple weeks or something during the beginning of the year.
Right. I like this. Now you're not thinking about just your system for the sake of your system, but you're also thinking about how do I provide the best customer service possible. And when you're able to provide the best customer service possible, those people that maybe they were buying from a local farm here or there, now they can buy year round with the assurance that they're going to be able to get pork whenever they want. Yeah. If you're able to pull that off and do that well, then 9 times out of 10, they're going to just start buying only your pork. And then if you want to sell anything else on top of that, now you have an engaged customer that, again, can trust that whenever they come, you have, for the most part, with the exception of maybe bacon, that you have exactly what they want. Game changer. You got them now. And that's a customer that can be going back to you year after year after year, or at least month after month after month.
Yeah, because I've had a customer that was interested in a share, but then asked me if he could get like half of his hog in just bacon. And I'm like, it doesn't quite work that way. But it's customers, it's like educating customers too, because not a lot of people are familiar with that. And even last year, I had someone back out on half a share. And when I put the word out there, I had 50 responses, but not any that wanted to do like a share. They were looking for, oh, what's your price per cut or this or that, or what do you, so a lot, I feel like I'm interested to see how the 2 go this year that we're going to sell by the cut, because I had so much interest in the pork, but just not shares. So that how that does this year may change a lot of things for us too. Because if people want that, obviously that's a really good cash flow for us, because you can get so much retail than you can by the share.
Amen. Amen. You figuring it out. And as you're thinking about that, my recommendation for you is start with only 10 products, starting out, and then work your way down to your top 5. So year one of doing retail should be your experimental phase, where you're just trying out a lot of different cuts and you're seeing what people are wanting for. If you already, because you looked at you put out a post and you had 50 people that weren't asking for shares, but were asking for individual types of cuts, if you can figure out what those cuts were, all right, now you might at least have probably your top 5. But that first year, experiment. After that first year, hone in on just maybe 6, like short ribs or ribs and bacon. There are only 2 ribs. There's only 2 tenderloins on a pig. So that would be kind of an exception to that. But you don't want to have so much variety of inventory that now I have to keep track of all the ham steaks and all the bacon and all the Italian sausage, all the hot sausage and all. Just make it simple. And when you make it simple, people are able to make simple decisions. And that doesn't bog them down, doesn't bog you down. Let's get into the housing part, because I know we're almost at an hour. I didn't realize we were having this good of a conversation.
Well, I can just talk forever. So I'm really bad at small talk, believe it or not. But you start talking about like farm stuff and I'll just ramble on for days.
It's pigs. It is so easy to talk rambling about pigs. So other things to keep in mind is you thought about good outdoor breeds. Again, I told you, find not just a breed, but individual pigs that are going to be raised or are being raised that you are going to raise those pigs if you can. And then I want to ask you, because you were concerned about like management, just really quickly, how much land do you have, or are you dedicating pigs?
Well, see, that's the hard part. So we have 27 acres, and probably 2/3 of that is pasture right now that we are trying to improve with cattle. And then probably another 1/3 of that is woods that we do have access to with trails and such. So that is an option to put them in the woods, because I know I've seen people do like forested pork, but it would be so nice to be able to say, hey, it's the middle of summer, it is blazing hot. You guys go in the woods, get some shade. It's more swampy in there. There's probably plenty of spots to wallow. I'm not worried about them digging and destroying anything. And then it would be nice to like, hey, I need some help on my pastures. Can you guys root up some stuff and fertilize as you're going along? If I could figure out how to be able to move them where I need them, that would be the most efficient thing for my farm. If that's possible, that would be like the ideal.
Gotcha. I can say it is possible. I think it just depends on how you want to execute it. But okay, so you got sometimes the issue is they don't have enough land. So I want to make sure that you at least have enough land. Okay, breeding and housing for outdoors. If you're raising them during wintertime, get some hay bales and just get a whole bunch of stock up on hay bales. Like just go ahead and buy all the junk hay bales within your county and use that. They love that. They'll eat it. They'll use it for bedding. You may have some concern about invasive species. So just if you do get like junk hay, that's just we just mow the field and baled it, right? Okay, just understand that when you do that, you might be bringing in species that you might not want. Land management, both of your cattle and your pigs, the invasive species probably won't thrive. Again, if you have the right level of impact, and that's the important thing. What soil types do you have on your property? Just want to make sure I know that real quick.
Most, I'd say it's really sandy.
Sandy? Okay, gotcha. So then that means, so if you had to estimate how much topsoil do you have before it gets to like just saying
it depends on in certain areas. Some are better than other because before we bought it was just farmed to death and never replenished, so it's a work in progress. But I'd say in some places like 6 inches maybe to a foot of topsoil. Others the sand is really close to the surface, so it just depends really on where it's at.
Gotcha. I'm assuming that's probably like closer to on top of the hill for the sand that has for the soil that has very low topsoil.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. So with pigs, you probably know this. Their rotation is going to be a little bit tighter because of the sandy soil. If it was iron-rich red clay, it would be the same case. But since the soil is a lot more loose, we want to make sure that you're managing not just the pigs, but the grass. Your cattle will definitely help with that, but making sure your pigs don't decimate and uproot a whole lot would be really beneficial. If you're noticing you're having issues with that, just make sure you're rotating them more regularly, even if they're going back to that same paddock within a month or two. So for housing, they can be raised outdoors, breeding sows, and your boar. Normally, I'd recommend your boar being separate. And here's the thing, I got friends who don't do that. I have friends who, their boars, because they have such a large breeding program, their boars are rarely by themselves because they're always with a herd of sows, and then they get moved to another herd of sows. You can expect that. But if you're only getting 2 sows and a boar, I almost recommend 3 sows. 1 sow doesn't take, then at least you're not short. So just be mindful of that.
Do you recommend AI at all?
I do if you are trained well in doing it. People who usually do AI also will do ultrasound to check on their pigs and make sure that they're actually pregnant. We have noticed with heritage breeds that they can be a little tricky because they're not like your typical pink pigs that you find in a commercial operation. So even like state universities have had to figure out proprietary information for both GOS and large blacks, like the University of Purdue. They spent a couple of years actually figuring out how to properly AI those breeds. That way they would actually take, because they're so different from your regular pigs. So you might run into that issue. You might not run into that issue. If you want to try that, I definitely recommend doing that. You should be able to ask your county extension agent or your swine specialist within your state on training for that. It should either be free of charge or at a very nominal fee. Even if it's like $100, I still recommend going doing it because you can buy semen straws for less than that. And the biggest thing is if you're going to keep semen, you need to be able to properly store it to where it's cold enough. So that's one thing you want to just do research on, keep that in mind, because you might get semen that day, but it's like, oh, I'm not ready to AI yet. Or the cell's not ready to AI. So you just need to make sure it's properly stored. But I would recommend AI if it fits within your system, mostly importantly, but also if it actually works for the breed that you're going to get. If you're getting more of your commercial crosses or even your like old line varieties of commercial breeds, I think you should be fine. But again, we have noticed there being some tricky issues with like pure heritage breed pigs. If you get anything across, it's usually not the case. So I would recommend AI as an option. And he also asked about like nutrition. If you're raising sows and they're not gestating and they're also not lactating, they're just bred sows. They just wean their piglets. You're giving them a month break. Usually you're going to feed them around 5 pounds a day. They usually eat around 5 pounds a day. If it's a heritage breed, like, you want to maybe increase their fiber a little bit more in that. So I don't know if you're buying feed or if you're making your own feed, but if you're making your own feed, just make sure that the feed that you are feeding your sow is actually sow feed. And there are different variations of gestating sow feed, lactating sow feed. Lactating sow feed is going to have more calories. Gestating sow feed is going to have the right amount of amino acids, nutrients for developing piglets. But you also want to make sure that you're not feeding your pigs, your sows, 18% crude protein, 16% crude protein, 14% crude protein. Your sows need to be at like 12, 10% crude. The reason why is because if you feed your pig, your sow, 18% crude protein while they're gestating, the pig's going to get really big. So big, especially for a new time sow, that it's going to cause the sow to have a lot of complications giving birth. So that's one thing why we don't want to recommend doing that. Also on the financial end, the more you decrease the crude protein in your feed, the cheaper it's going to be for you. So then you're going to have costs on your feed saves. You're going to have cost savings on your feed. So that's going to be really important. But most importantly, we want to make sure that she has a very good first-time farrowing experience. So if you're doing that, feed her 13 to 10% crude protein feed. Make sure that it is a sow diet, and then make sure that when she does start lactating, that she gets plenty of feed, because a lot of those pigs, when they're lactating, can eat probably like 15 pounds a day, somewhere around there. Not all of them do, but they can eat up to that.
Okay, and do they normally, is 8 weeks normally the range where they'll be fully weaned by that time?
Yeah, by 8 weeks, they should be ready to go. And in fact, the sows are going to get to a point where they are ready to move on. Now the piglets are eating their feed, and I've never sows. They'll get to a point when once the piglets start eating the feed, they will fling them across the field because at this point you're eating my food. So yeah, by 8 weeks you should be ready to go. We got people that do it as early as a month. I really do the month and a half range. So the 6 weeks, that'll be perfectly fine if you want to do that.
Okay.
But other than that, I feel like I answered all your questions. And you had a lot of them too. Did you have any other final questions or things that just popped up while we were talking?
Oh, so for this year, since I'm having a struggle finding piglets, let's say I found my 7 that I'm supposed to be getting are ready in 2 to 3 weeks. And I get this group, and then I have another group in a couple more weeks that I found. Will I have to keep them separate, like, for their entire time here? Or can the difference in ages, can they be put together?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. The answer to that is it depends. I think ultimately they should be fine, but they do need to be separate for, some people will do a month, some people will do 2 weeks, some people will do 5 days. I think at least doing it for a week, if not 2 weeks of separation, will really tell whether or not pigs are sick or not. And then even if one herd is sick, that's okay because the other herd didn't get hit, right?
Right.
And you can just make sure you keep wherever they were off limits for 4 months, 6 months, whatever disease might be, they have a protocol for that. So that's one thing that I also recommend for that is separate them for at least 2 weeks. If you do it for a week, that's okay. I recommend 2 weeks. And then try to bring them together. There will be some initial infighting. That's just going to happen because what you've done is you have destabilized their hierarchy. You would be destabilizing the hierarchy. So then they are going to try to figure out who's the top pig in this herd to the bottom pig in this herd. It's going to be fine for a while. Just expect it to happen. If you're noticing it's getting really violent, you might want to separate for a little bit more time. And for the pigs that are really small, you want to make sure that they're getting fed properly. What tends to happen is one group gets so big that they're going to outcompete the group that's going to grow a lot slower. And that should happen when you have two different groups that came from different farms. I'm pretty sure one group either had a head start or one group's just going to grow slower because of their genetics. So be mindful of that. Make sure that even those pigs get plenty of feed. If you're noticing I'm feeding extra and these pigs are still small, either they're runts or they're still being out-competed and the other pigs are just being greedy. And you might need to create another herd so that way the smaller pigs have the opportunity to grow out to their full potential.
Yes.
Cool. Perfect. I appreciate you coming around and giving me an opportunity to serve you. Yeah, I'm proud of you for even asking these questions and moving forward because you could say that cute little old homestead level, but now you're going into the big leagues and this is like my goal. And a lot of homesteaders don't necessarily see it, but I want to cultivate a culture even within the homesteading community where we're not just thinking small and staying small, but that we're thinking, how do we impact our community, our world? I do believe that the homesteading life or farming life is a beautiful life, and I want more people to connect with that. But when we just say, little old me and my little corner of the world, and I'm only focused on me and I'm not really engaging with my community, that's cool and all, but I feel like there can be so much more change in the world when we actually think big and do bigger things. So I'm proud of you for moving forward in that. Again, within the first year or two of you making this transition, you're going to be okay, but you can't stay in that scale for long. So I want to give you a heads up because people don't tell other people this. So I'm just going to tell you this. You ain't never going to be able to say, no one ever told me this. Pork Rind told you this. You can't stay mid-scale for very long. Eventually, you're going to have to scale up and be more efficient because you get more cost savings when you do that, when you're buying in bulk. Hopefully, you're buying in bulk, definitely buying in bulk. And you get more scale efficiency even in a breeding program. Generally, the recommendation, like industry-wise, is around 20 sows to one boar, right? On a pasture level, it's okay, 6 sows to a boar. You're starting at 2, maybe 3, and I do recommend 3 if you can afford it, 3 sows to a boar. But just keep in mind that boar going to keep growing and going to keep eating, and the sows are going to keep growing and keep eating. So that feed bill is going to go up. Eventually, you want to create a system where you are rotating sows with younger gilts that are going to be able to perform well, but not eat as much feed as your 3-year-old, 6-year-old sows now are going to be eating. And I do believe you can go, past 6 years as a farm. If you just keep thinking the way that you're thinking, I think you'll be fine. So yeah, I got so much hope for you. And I just want to remind you that you are loved. God loves you. Clearly, God loves you. I think that you're on the right track and that you're going to be an inspiration for a lot of people in your community. So I just want to give you a quick round of applause.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions and just have someone to bounce ideas off of. And because you've been there, done that, you've seen how it works all over the country. So I really appreciate your knowledge, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your talk in April. We will be there in Tennessee.
Yay! Perfect. Cool. I look forward to seeing you there too. I did a consultation last week and they were like, yeah, I'm coming to your session in April. I was like, man, there are a lot of people who are hyped up about my session. So I look forward to seeing you again, you and your family. The first time I saw y'all, I was honored that y'all allowed for me to pray for y'all as a family. I'm going to do it again. So just be on the lookout for that. I ain't going to miss y'all. But yeah, I guess before closing out, if you were to ever recommend Park Ryan, being able to console anybody, or let's say you have a homesteader that wants to think maybe a little bit bigger about pigs, or maybe they hadn't even gotten into pigs, but they want to consider pigs. What are some things that you've enjoyed, have gotten out of experiences of me being able to help you out in your homesteading endeavor? Sorry, your homesteading to farming. Farmer endeavors.
I would definitely recommend because you are a wealth of knowledge. Not only like you're talking to me about scaling up, but for somebody that might be just starting or wants to keep it small, you can adjust that to their size and what they want to do with it. And it's a wealth of information. It's not just do one thing. Hey, let's see what's going to work for you, for your budget, for your goals, for everything. So I highly recommend you because you can help with a wide array of things for people. So it's not just small or large. You're just kind of everything. So I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you, and I'll let you go. And I hope you have a good day.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Folks, what are you waiting for? Some of you've had pigs for a while, and you're like, oh, we want to scale up. Oh, we're not sure. What are you waiting for? Melina's doing it. Why not you? Why not? You can do it too. And for those of you who are still thinking about getting pigs, you can do it too. You can actually get pigs. It's not as complicated as a lot of these people are saying it is. It really is not. And I hope that even in this session that you guys are watching, that it can be complicated, but it's only complicated when you don't have the proper wisdom or don't have the proper people guiding you on that journey. So if you're like, man, I need some help just figuring out a couple of things, or I need help figuring out how do I create an enterprise around raising pigs or even other livestock, let me know. Send me an email. Send me a DM. I want to be able to serve you. I do believe that God's called me to greatness, and part of how I live out a life of greatness is being of maximum service to my communities. I just want to be able to get the opportunity to serve you in a powerful way. I hope you learned a lot from this consultation session, and I look forward to being able to show a couple more that will give you some insight on not just simply how I work, but I do this so that way you can see that you're not alone in your experience. You're not alone in all the questions that you have to ask and aren't getting appropriate or even correct answers in. I want to make sure that you have confidence in what you're doing when it comes to raising pigs. So again, I want to make sure you have wisdom without the hogwash. So keep coming back, y'all. I want to be able to serve you as best as I can. Have a good one.